Art and culture. These two words, in their broadest sense, are the real thing at Louis Vuitton. Fashion shows, collaborations, openings, exhibitions. Ever wondered who's behind every hot moment at the Maison? I'm Loïc Prigent, and I'm delighted to be your eyes, ears, and voice with a very French accent to extend your cultural perspectives and broaden your horizons. You are listening to Extended, the Louis Vuitton podcast. Welcome, and I hope you enjoy today's episode. All this summer, the village of Saint-Tropez has been overtaken by the incredible flavors and aromas of Provence emanating from the iconic restaurant of the white 1921 hotel located on the no less iconic Place des Lys. Taking charge of the kitchen in 2023, a renowned 3-starred chef and the 2022 Goemio Guide's Best Pastry Chef have taken the helm of the hotel's restaurant. Welcome to Arnaud Donckele and Maxime Frédéric at Louis Vuitton. From Provence to the Atlas Mountains, the refined menu is an ode to La Méditerranée. The duo has created a culinary odyssey with a stopover in their native region of Normandy. Lobster, sea bass, octopus, wild gamberoni. The menu pays special attention to seafood, accentuated by the freshest of products from the Var vegetable garden. The Sweet Dreams part of the menu is an invitation to indulge in delightful décadence, a necessary saccharine dénouement. Honestly, I decline all responsibility if what's following whets your appetite. Chocolate, praline, vanilla, lemon. Maxime Frédéric's creations exude the warmth of summer, imbued with the chef's delicate finesse. From monogrammed Louis Vuitton plates to locally sourced artisanal products, each considered element of the restaurant reveals a story of human adventure and creativity, as well as a commitment to sustainability. Imagine yourself surrounded by the restaurant's kitchen, its sounds, smells, and rhythm. Then, between two courses, we meet Arnaud Donckele and Maxime Frédéric. To me, they are like conductors of a gastronomic orchestra, both artisans and artists. The two of them have fused local terroir flavors with haute cuisine, infusing their expert savoir-faire with a summer flair. I know less about the world of gastronomy than I do fashion, so I have a lot of questions about their creative process. What inspires them? How do they create food that evokes emotions? And how do they continue to surprise, reinvent, and reinterpret their art? How do they work together? Before meeting them, I had a clue: the words used by the chefs on the first page of the menu. It reads, "Surround yourself with passionate people, build strong friendships, and bring a little touch of love." This leaves no doubt about what motivates them. Beyond a culinary experience, their creations center around emotion. It's all about the art of sharing. What will transpire from this episode is the chef's collaborative spirit. They strongly believe that the only way to create magic on the plate is to work with the best products. And we'll explore this in our conversation with one of the chef's exceptional partners. Commitment and passion are on the menu of the Louis Vuitton podcast Extended. Let's meet Arnaud Donckele and Maxime Frédéric. Bonjour, merci d'être. Hello, and thanks for joining us.
Hello.
And thanks to Arnaud Donckele and Maxime Frédéric for being here.
Thanks.
Ça va bien? How are you? Not too tired? Who gets fewer vacations, fashion people or gastronomy people?
We're always on vacation.
Come on, you work all the time.
Well, actually,
I don't think we see it as work. Maybe that's our problem.
So you don't realize you're working like crazy?
Not necessarily.
What time did you finish last night?
1 a.m.,
1 a.m. as well?
Yeah.
And what time did you start this morning?
9:30,
And when was your last Sunday off?
2 months ago,
Seriously?
2.5 months ago, yeah.
What did you do?
On my last Sunday off, I think it's been even longer than that. It was at l'Assiette Champenoise, 3 months. My first lunch, it was half a day, really. We spent it together after launching Saint-Tropez. We decided we should at least get the whole family together and go and have lunch.
Ouais, c'était sympa.
It was great.
And what did you do?
We hit the beach in Saint-Tropez.
For real? Like, did you go swimming and everything?
Although he did go and meet his team in the morning.
Right, so he never knows when to stop.
Ouais, non, ça va.
We're kind of hooked, aren't we?
Exactly, so you do find it fulfilling.
Ah bah oui.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's hard not to feel fulfilled. It's not a job, it's a passion. A real passion, for sure. And people often ask us, how do you do it? 2 to 3 weeks vacation a year? Maybe a little break in the winter? But at the end of the day, we're lucky to live in a society where we have it pretty easy. People in the rest of the world have to work a lot harder, don't they? And that's what's important. And anyway, if we're having so much fun, why stop?
This sounds familiar to me. My parents were farmers, and what you're describing is a farmer's life.
Yeah, we're both from farming backgrounds. And it would be hard to tell farmers who work 7 days a week, 365 days a year, that we work a lot. Every single day, they have to do the milking twice. And on the day they marry their children, they have to go milk the cows.
Both feet on the ground. Can you tell us how you met?
Alors, la rencontre,
How we met.
Tell us about how you met.
la rencontre avec Arnaud.
Arnaud likes to keep things simple. We went for breakfast
Where?
C'était à Paris.
in Paris, in a little cafe.
Café,
Did you sit up at the counter?
No, we were on a little bench seat.
Right.
et,
We arranged to meet at 9 a.m.
donc,
I didn't know Arnaud.
Arnaud,
We'd never met,
jamais rencontré avant.
but I admired his work,
J'admirais son travail.
and I think
The feeling was mutual.
he felt the same way.
Un petit peu aussi, mais simplement. Hein. Et
So how did you organize this? With an email or a text?
Well, he was my dream candidate for the Cheval Blanc project. But considering where he worked at the time, I thought we'd never be on his level. So I didn't even dare think about it. But we had a colleague who used to work with us, Edouard Delavaux, and he was really determined. So he was at a pop-up in Maxime's previous place, and he brought a pain au chocolat and managed to kind of bluff his way and organize the meeting.
Mais il a su dire les bons mots.
Edouard was very persuasive, so we met up, and I got there at 8:45.
Moi, je suis arrivé à
I'm
8 heures.
usually a bit late.
Je suis toujours un
I have a bit of trouble with that.
Okay.
Quand c'est important.
It's important, really important.
It was already in line with the group's philosophy of creating desire.
Mais du coup,
But this time I got there 15 minutes early,
For once.
and Arnaud was already there. I hadn't dressed up,
J'avais mis ma petite veste,
but I'd put on a little jacket just to look right,
J'avais mis une petite veste pour être à peu près voilà, dans les codes d'un petit entretien.
as if it was a job interview.
Arnaud, il était en polo.
Arnaud was wearing a polo shirt and kept getting up to get me some coffee, fruit juice, or a croissant. We were supposed to be there for an hour and a half, but in the end, we left at 1 p.m. We talked about everything except work and the project we wanted to set up. We talked about our lives, we talked about Normandy, we talked about the simple things in life. It was as if we'd known each other for a long time, not just a matter of minutes. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was May. The weather was great. I was immediately taken with him. So I got home, feeling weak in the legs, and I was supposed to be working that day. But I was extremely late. I'd arrived at the appointment early, but I'd left really late. and my team, who are still with me to this day, stood in for me. When I got there, I was like a little kid. I was totally blown away by him, and I thought, it's going to be hard for me to say no.
What about you, Arnaud? Did you have butterflies in your stomach too?
Well, we were really on the same wavelength. We come from very similar families too, from the same region. We have our feet on the ground, and we're really rooted in a similar way. And when I saw his work, there was a strength, an elegance, and a great humility despite his talent. And I must admit, I find that really moving. His humility is strong, but it's real. It's sincere. Because sometimes there's nothing worse than false humility.
False humility, real megalomania.
Exactly. So it really made an impression on me. It was weird because I was already established with my 3 little stars and all that. So it might seem like that would be enough. But in fact, I'd been dreaming of this kind of relationship. I thought, wow, we have so much in common. We have our own personalities, of course, and our own projects. But it was magical, a kind of professional dream. You know, when you want to say yes and walk hand in hand with someone like that, because together we're going to have a lot of fun. Because our job is our passion. It's so magical when it's supported by a collective. When I see how he leads these men and women with such passion and affection, sometimes I say to my team, look, it's incredible. It's like being in Care Bear land. He guides his team with absolute precision, with the rigor of a watchmaker, but at the same time, with an affection that can overcome any barriers. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. I find him to be such a beautiful person. For me, our professional relationship is mind-blowing. I wish everyone could experience it. I'm his biggest fan, and he knows that. Our wives get on well, too, so we're incredibly lucky. I had the same thing with my venue manager, and we built the Vague d'Or together, hand in hand. And meeting up with Maxime is explosive, sincere, and affectionate, as well as a lot of fun. And that's what it's all about, having fun. I have kids of my own. I also have a little brother. But I think my relationship with Maxime is like family, and that's what's so great about it. Yesterday, we did some snacking tests for Louis Vuitton. He's really into it. It's a savory thing. We're here to tell him that what he's doing is magical, truly. To take the lead on this, to support him in this project, it's just amazing. And when Maxime launches the savory menu at his cafe at the LV Dream exhibition, I think we'll feel like a rebirth, like what Pharrell did in his last show, something no one expects. And Pharrell did something incredible, a real fashion show. He raised the bar, and now Maxime's creating something quite similar in the savory segment. I'm just a humble companion to this man's incredible adventure.
Oh, you're too modest. All this modesty is too much. I can't let you say that.
No, it's true. It's true. That's honestly how I feel.
But it's interesting that you make the comparison with Pharrell. It means you identify with the other creatives at Louis Vuitton. You can compare yourself to them, feel at home in this creative world.
You mean in haute couture?
Like Nicolas Ghesguer's fashion.
I think there are similarities. In any case, we work in very similar fields with similar backgrounds. I think Pharrell's work is pretty amazing. People are very vigilant in fashion. Because in fashion, there's a collective that leads the way, because creativity is a kind of magic. We're not followers. We have to be predictors and push the envelope. As Carl used to say, to be fashionable is already to be out of fashion. So we have to keep pushing our teams, because we're also agitators. We have to push them to find the right concept that will lead us to something truly unique, that will make people stop and look at us, and maybe take a few ideas from us. That's our job. It's what Maxime does every day. It's also what our teams and chefs do, because on our own, we're absolutely nothing. We're really supported by a collective, but I think there's a real connection with fashion. Very much so.
Nicolas Ghesquière has this idea of always reinventing himself, always going further, always being highly original, going right to the cutting edge.
Ouais, c'est ça.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also about creating things that are straightforward. For example, when it comes to savory cooking, like I always say, Arnaud is my second dad. That's how it is. He reassures me. So you know you can never fall. That's what I was telling my team yesterday because I was really in a bind. I always tell my team that you have to keep one foot on the path to feel comfortable and one foot on the edge of the cliff. The foot on the path means you'll never fall, and the foot on the edge of the cliff is going to shake you up a bit, make you question yourself, take you out of your comfort zone. And yesterday was the first time that's ever happened to me. I felt like I was walking across a tightrope suspended between two mountains. And now I've just got one hand outstretched so I don't fall. And it was Arnaud who was there for me. And my team who sent me messages in the morning to tell me they were there for me, that it was going to be okay. Because they knew that I was feeling really uneasy. So where I usually have one foot on the path and the other on the edge of the cliff, here I was walking on a tightrope in the middle of the mountain. And it went really well. Arnaud and this team made it all possible, and that's magical.
So when will we get to taste it?
From September, if things go to plan.
Oh, great. Can you tell us how you put together a summer menu like the one we tasted in Saint-Tropez?
So in Saint-Tropez,
I read that at one point you dug into books by Jean Giono to put you in the mood.
So this was for the Vague d'Or, the 3-star restaurant. Jean Giono's phrase is what kept me going. I think it's also a form of cuisine where you build things up, a bit like a novel. You need a preface, you need characters, a setting, a location, and from there you create a theme. And from this theme, at the end of the novel, you can create an emotional experience, either sentimental or tragic. It's up to us to put the words together so that it creates emotion, and so that it leads to something clear and cohesive. So Jean Giono's phrase gave me support, along with Thierry, who's Italian and a storyteller. When Italians speak of a menu to you, they mime it too, because they live the produce. Italians really live the produce. When he says, I cut, I get the impression that he's the chef, and he's the one who cuts. So I realized I also had a marvelous storyteller in the room, and that I needed him to have dishes that could be told and retold, so that his own talent would be highlighted and allow him to have fun. Plus, the magical thing about stories when you're an adult is that you've seen them as a child. That's what we look for in cinema. It's what you look for when you're looking at a painting, for example. That's what we're after when we look at how the process, and how that's probably also why we're receptive to art, to construct dishes that tell us a story. And I've chosen Giono's sentence that says, the landscape helps us understand the people who live there and the food that's served. Food helps us understand the philosophy of a region, its soul, and its surrounding landscape. In fact, in Saint-Tropez, it's crazy because the place is fun, it's chic, there's atmosphere, music, the service is super casual, and yet the dish is surgically produced like in a top-notch gastronomic restaurant. What can bring us up to the same level as a high-end handbag? What makes a dish deserving of the support of a brand that is, after all, the very quintessence of materials and savoir-faire?
It takes years in the making.
Many years.
It took many years and generations before Louis Vuitton reached such a high level. The brand has been around for 200 years, and when you join, you have to take all of it on board and get to the same level in just a few months. There's another parallel there with someone like Pharrell. He arrived and had to take everything on board and respect the history while bringing in his own personality. The vision for the next 10 or 20 years to really make a mark is that the dishes have to feel obvious, like they've been there for years.
We talked about this with Maxime. As a matter of fact, we don't sell high-end products, but high-quality products. It's not quite the same thing.
Where is the nuance for you?
The nuance is, first and foremost, the notion of price. Here we have high-quality products. In other words, we're going to take a rather basic product, like a mackerel or a gambaroni, but behind it, there's a craftsmanship and human touch that is exceptional.
How did you arrive at this?
We thought of all the people we've known for a long time who follow us, and whether it's me in the Mediterranean basin or Maxime with all the small suppliers, we're people from the land. So we're obviously going to be working with the produce. We already know most of the people.
Did you want the menu to sound like a cicada or not? Because we were in the south. Maxime?
For the desserts, yeah, of course. I mean, you absolutely have to tell the story, so that's also very rewarding. And you have to be open to your surroundings. You arrive in Saint-Tropez, it's magical. Wandering through the village, meeting the producers, meeting people, taking it all in and being inspired. And from there, with a small team, we were able to continue the Paris story and create a Provençal version within the span of a few weeks. And typically, what seemed most appropriate was to rework a Tropézienne dessert.
Incredible! The church in the middle of the village, the Tropézienne.
So we made a Tropézienne.
Did you hesitate or was it clear you should?
It was clear we should. Although a Tropézienne...
So, what is a Tropézienne for those listening who don't know? It's delicious for a start.
It's a brioche. It's delicious.
It's comforting, it's sweet. There's something particularly dreamlike in the word Tropézienne. It feels like...
Traveling.
And what a nice trip.
So, a Tropézienne is simply a brioche filled with vanilla and orange blossom cream. That's the basics. It's actually so simple that to create emotion, you have to really pay attention to the details. If you're not sensitive to the textures and if you don't evoke the feeling of a big hug, then you're missing something. So that's where sensitivity is really important. It's not just technique. Making a dessert is not about mixing a handful of flour, an egg, and a tablespoon of sugar. That has never made a dessert. All that mixed together makes a cake, but it doesn't necessarily create any emotion. The Tropézienne is often made with chunks of sugar, and here, rather than adding this crust of sugar that's sweet and emotional, we've made a sort of crumble, which is also sweet. This crumble bears the house monograms. They're individually handmade. This is the kind of work a fairy might do, and is like seamstress work. It takes the gestures of a craftsman. And that's the human dimension at the heart of all these endeavors, like when we visit the Agnières workshop to see the made-to-measure bags. There are only hands at work, no machines. The machine is there just to simplify your task and make it a little bit easier. But it's still about the little nail and hammer, the super stretched canvas, the craftsmanship. Whether you're a cabinet maker, a farmer, or anything else, it's the sensitivity and the human hand that will ensure the product is of the highest quality.
What's your favorite ingredient on this menu?
On the Saint-Tropez menu, there was one thing that stood out for me. I started making sushi. It sounds crazy because it's not my culture, but I wanted to make sushi, and I ended up working with Aubin, who is a French sushi chef. I want it to be the quintessence of the Mediterranean. The rice isn't white, it's brown. We worked on brown rice, and we were looking for umami. Right away, the rice has a taste that's not at all like neutral sushi. It's really intense. We worked on the roasting and on the vinegar to create a particular taste for this rice that's immediately addictive. In other words, when you take a spoonful, you want to take a second, then a third. That's also our job, to create a kind of addiction.
I'm glad you admit it.
And I put it with fresh sardines, which is a strong-tasting fish. We put them on the flame with lisettes, with nice round gambaroni from Genova. We put it with the tuna tataki, and we really had fun. We made marinated sea bass with mandarin oranges and kumquat. So it's just marinated, raw on one side, and it's skin on sushi rice. And we created sauces. Sauces are my passion. Aubin and I worked on a sweet soy sauce, but we adjusted the sweetness and added a little wasabi. The ginger is always in pieces and always very strong, to the detriment of the sushi taste. So we went for a creolization of ginger, cucumber water, seaweed, cordiformis, and then we just pectinated it so that when it coats the sushi, you dip it like a sauce. And it's super elegant, like a little veil on top. We worked with yuzu ponzu, a little soya, and some tonsazu, And we created a real sensory experience. And I'm quite proud of that.
You were talking about it, and it's funny because your dishes remind me of Nicolas Ghesquière's fashion shows, where I don't understand what's going on. There's so much happening. You can't really understand everything because there are so many references mixed in. There's some extraordinary embroidery in 3D. I mean, there's a Louis Vuitton-like coherence.
That's the goal of the collaboration. And we're delighted to hear that, because in a way, our most important customers are leading admirer, Louis Vuitton. The great difficulty with food is how to make it match this environment in some way. So what you're telling us is a wonderful compliment. And thank you for that, really.
So, I'm the son of a farmer who grew artichokes in Brittany. Are there any artichokes on the menu?
Yes.
Tell me more, I'm all about the artichokes.
We make an artichoke with octopus and a sort of ephemeral rouille.
Can you define ephemeral rouille?
It's the rouille of a soup, so we whip it up together like a big cloud. We take the octopus and the artichokes, and we dip them in the rouille. And next week, we're doing a dish that's 100% artichoke. We take the head of the artichoke, slide it thinly, but without losing the head. We fry it so that it becomes crispy on the outside, soft in the center, with olives, nasturtiums, rocket, some egg white, topped with a deviled egg. Here we're going to make something similarly ephemeral, a sort of light rouille, like a cloud, containing a concentration of vegetables that will cook like a bouillabaisse. You get the taste of bouillabaisse, only with vegetables. So when you soak the artichoke, they'll find a vegetable bouillabaisse.
You're going to have to fan people.
Bear in mind that my godfather was a market gardener.
Really? What did he grow?
Almost 50 different vegetables a year. My grandparents were farmers. We lived on a completely self-sufficient farm. My father was a craft butcher and from a fishing family. So, you see, I have the right background. In the end, Maxime and I both have the right backgrounds. It's our sense of family. We come from this world, which is a wonderful world.
What did your parents do, Maxime?
We skipped a generation. It was my grandparents on my mother's side, in the Manche region, the real Normandy.
The real deal.
The real deal, where it's sunny several times a day, as they say.
My mother says that too.
So, my great-great-grandparents had dairy cows, and it skipped a generation. My older sister took over the farm 10 years ago. And since 2019, I've shared the project with my older sister and my wife. On the farm, we've built up a small brood of laying hens, only old hens that have been completely taken out of the circuit, simply to have fresh eggs for pastry and cooking. That was the idea. There was a gap that needed to be filled. I couldn't source an egg, but on weekends, I'd go back to the farm and I could make cakes with eggs from there. And then I'd arrive in Paris and I didn't have any eggs. And today my sister, on her farm, has this little egg project. It's a very small project, but she lives for it because she can appreciate what she's contributing to a dessert, a dish, or a breakfast. And I think you can really feel that in our recipes today. You can feel the same thing in our teams. There's a real awareness and respect for people. Arnaud and I really believe in people, because in the end, it's all about love. And the idea is to put even more love into it. In any case, not to spoil it. It's precious.
I often say there are three things that are extremely difficult in life. And that's finding a job and the passion that allows you to get up in the morning, full of energy. If you've already been lucky enough to experience that, it's extraordinary. Finding the person with whom you're going to forge a path in life. Finding the magic every day, despite the highs and lows, the joys and sorrows.
Another challenge
Is another challenge. Finding that gem of a person who accompanies you through life, like your other half. And the third thing, when you're a parent, is providing guidance. It's the toughest job, supporting children. And if you succeed in these three things in life, or in the first two, that's already huge. For some people, the third thing, I think, is the most difficult. And it's hugely emotional. But in fact, it's precisely this emotional bubble that makes the days, even if they're long, truly exceptional.
There's the family by blood and the family of the heart. And this family of the heart is very important to me in my everyday life. My grandmother always says that the most important thing in the end is family and friends. What's left in the end is family and friends. And today I have the feeling that my team, this beautiful team, all together, we're a little family too.
Fantastic. Thank you for coming on the Louis Vuitton Extended podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I feel like I ate.
It was our pleasure.
Incredible. You nourished me.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for listening to Louis Vuitton Extended. I'll be inviting you soon to discover new stories in the company of visionary personalities. You will find all the episodes on your favorite listening platforms, such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You should subscribe to the podcast to get notifications so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. I look forward to welcome you back.